0.
You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome on, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside David Neese, Corey Naito. And how are you gentlemen feeling on this fine Tuesday evening where I can't find my mouse?
Oh, no, not the mouse.
I found
We're doing well. It got cold here in the Philly suburbs quick. It is like 30 degrees with winds gusting. Probably feel like temperature in the mid-20s. I am not ready for this.
Yeah, it's terrible. When I woke up, it was 18 degrees. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible.
Damn.
How about sunny Florida? What are you doing?
Rub it in, Brian.
I went outside with no hair and short sleeves, and it was actually pretty damn cold. It was 40 degrees this morning. But like very, very cold and like nippy, like 40 degrees. Like it was mad at me. It didn't really warm up today. I'm hoping tomorrow warms up. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, it wasn't colder than Lambeau, right? Last night when the Eagles faced the Packers. I think we all predicted the outcome of this game to be as a low-scoring defensive battle, and we all expected the offense to do nothing. No, but in all seriousness, the Eagles took on the Packers. They won 10-7 in what felt like a very tense playoff matchup. It could be a playoff preview for all we know, as the teams faced off last season in a wild card. Before we dive into the full aspect of defense, offense, what's one thing positive that you guys can take away from this Eagles win?
The
hesitation.
There's a couple of ways I could go about this. I think the most important thing is they just find ways to win, and that's just tough to teach. It's tough to do, especially in the National Football League. I mean, if we looked at the scores this week, Buffalo getting smoked down in Miami. There's been a lot of head-scratching games over the last 2-3 weeks, and even though the Eagles struggled to do anything offensively, they still found a way to win, and they're atop the NFC. So I think that's the biggest positive for me. Is it didn't feel great last night watching it, but you realize, hey, they went into Lambeau, a very tough place to play, very tough place to win against a Packers team that lost to Carolina last week. So yeah, that's my biggest positive takeaway.
Okay, how about you, David?
I think mine is that Vic Fangio is an absolute wizard. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he has been able to do with this defense, and the fact that they were able to add to it over the bye week with new additions. And if you count Nakobe Dean coming back a couple weeks ago, Nolan Smith was back, who wreaked havoc, and Jaelan Phillips, who obviously comes in there already knowing the scheme, already knowing the language. He was completely competent. I mean, he was one of the players of the game. He had 8 pressures, 6 tackles, 5 stops, a TFL, a fumble recovery. I mean, that was his Eagles debut, and it pretty much goes unnoticed because everybody's so agitated about a 10-7 score. But yeah, the defense is amazing. They're hitting a stride now that has not been seen in Philadelphia in many, many years. There's really nobody whose offense that you're scared of. You might get worried that the offense can't, score points here and there, but the defense is playing so well that it's very hard to pick against the Eagles despite any other struggles you might see.
Do you know the one positive that I could take from this game?
You didn't go? You didn't freeze at the stands?
I mean, yeah, I was home and in my warmth until today happened. The one positive that we can say is that Howie Roseman listens to Flipping the Birds and no other podcast in the world, because for weeks 4 weeks, I said Jaelan Phillips while Corey preached Bradley Chubb, and rightfully so, because Bradley Chubb would have been a hell of a move. But I said Jaelan Phillips was going to be a menace in this defense. And the guy was a menace last night. I think it was 7 to 8 pressures. He got credit for the second fumble, even though he shouldn't have. That was Blankenship. But he had a fumble recovery as well. And he played the part. Like, we got to see Nolan Smith, a healthy Nolan Smith. We got to see a healthy Jaelan Phillips, a healthy Brandon Graham, and a healthy Jalen Hunt, to the point where the number two sack leader on the team didn't even see the field in Josh Uche. Like, we saw a healthy rotation, and guys like Jalen Hunt benefited from it. He had that one sack was like a 13-yard loss where he almost like haymaker the referee into oblivion. It was a great pass rush, and I feel like that's a huge positive going down the stretch because these guys looked fresh. The rotation looked really good. They allowed Jalen Carter to do his thing. Jordan Davis, Moro Jomo, who wasn't on my bingo card to be having a breakout season like this, but the defensive line looked very, very good, and I feel like that's a huge positive for a team that's been searching for a bit of their identity this season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the defense clearly won the game. I think they clearly have fixed the pass rush, and in turn, it helps the secondary. And we talked about it in previous episodes. If they get a bona fide pass rusher, that helps Keely Ringo. That helps Adoree Jackson, who actually got the start at CB2 last night. So, and you don't have to blitz nearly as much. Vic Fangio, I think, blitzed like 9% last night. I mean, one of the lowest rates of any team this year in a game. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to be taken out of that game, even though it was 10-7. David concurs. And Brian, you're muted.
Am I muted?
I said a whole lot of crazy things. I was throwing stats out the wazoo. I mentioned Davis Lilly. He was going to say something for a second.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, yeah, if you want to get into some of the game breakdown, I mean, like the defense stood firm. I think that that was obvious. And if you get into the part like that, everybody's debating or talking about is like them going for it on fourth down and those kinds of moves and things like that, and their conservative offensive approach, which I think is something else that's been beaten half to death this season, how they do things. Because I think you could tell after the first fumble. I mean, the Eagles had 16 plays, 77 yards. Jalen Hurts fumbles the ball, and him and Petullo go into conservative mode very quickly. I mean, the next few drives, they are throwing very short passes. They're not taking any risks. Some of that, if you go back and watch the all 22, some of it, that scheme was intentional. Like they had a lot of curls.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
But breaking news. Jair Alexander has informed the Eagles that he is stepping away from football to focus on getting himself right physically and mentally, per Jay Alexander.
Wow.
And Jay Glazer, my bad. Not Jay Alexander. Jair Alexander is the player.
Not surprising, because that was a weird omission yesterday when he said that his body wasn't right. So I wonder what that does to the trade.
I'm a little heartbroken. Do you think the Eagles would get the Dallas Cowboys first round pick because of this?
Definitely. Yeah, they had a poison pill in there. But yeah, that is a little surprising. But something definitely was weird yesterday when that came out, that he wasn't flying with the team, that he wasn't doing anything after being acclimated so quickly, and all of his press conferences and talk in the locker room was that how ready he was to do that. But
I mean, I didn't have high expectations with the trade, and it's because it seemed something was off. When the Ravens got him, I was like, wow, that is a really good move. And he never played. And he was healthy scratches. So I'm like, this isn't adding up. I don't know if the Eagles took a flyer and Christian Parker was like, hey, bring him in. He could be a good locker room guy. He could help the young guys out a little bit. Maybe that was the mindset. They didn't give up a whole lot to get him, obviously. But, yeah, obviously for Jair Alexander, you wish him the best. You hope that he gets back on the path that he needs to be physically and mentally. And, it's tough when you're not physically there to play football, but then when the mental side kicks in and you're kind of second guessing yourself, or we saw the tragic incident that just happened with the Dallas Cowboys there. Mental health is no joke.
And you kind of sense that something was off. I was watching his interviews in the locker room when he first got here, and Jair Alexander, like following his career, like he's always been very animated when he speaks about football. Very animated. He's a funny guy, and he seems a bit reserved at times when talking to the media. I'm a little, as a fan, it sucks because you want to see what it will look like with Jair and Quinion and Cooper, but I get this is not Jair Alexander of years past, but still nonetheless I thought this would be a solid move for them, but it puts them back in a weird position now because although the pass rush looked good, I'm still not a huge fan of Adoree Jackson just because I feel like he's extremely off. What do you guys make of this for Vic Fangio going forward? Like who do you see him leaning on at CB2?
Well, I thought it was Keely Ringo, but Adoree got the start last night, and he didn't do that bad. I know he got beat on a couple of plays. I know there were some drops. The Packers have a depleted wide receiving core. It's a little scary to think Adoree Jackson going against Jameson Williams and maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I don't know when we're going to see Jacorian Bennett. I thought he was going to be the CB2 once they brought him in. Obviously, he's injured. He's trying to work his way back. It depends on how much he practices. I feel like we say this every week with Vic. If you're not practicing, you're most likely not playing on Sunday. So I think they have no choice. They're kind of setting their flag down and saying, hey, these are our guys. I mean, they didn't go out and get a big outside cornerback. They added Michael Carter II for the slot, which will mix in. I think they're trying to piecemeal this together and hope that now with this improved pass rush, they don't need to put Coop out on the outside. I think that is like the panic attack buttons hit. We need to stop this immediately. So as long as Healy and Adoree can kind of hold their own, I think those are the guys.
I'm curious as to what happens with this trade now. Do the Eagles get that pick back, or
that'll depend on the wording and the language of that deal, I suspect.
Interesting. Okay, well, we do wish the best for Jair Alexander on whatever his future endeavors are. It looks like he's contemplating retirement. And you bring up a good point about Jacorian Bennett because if I'm not mistaken, they opened the practice window for him, but did they ever activate him as of yet or no?
No, same with Lampkin.
Nope.
They didn't activate him either.
Okay. I thought they didn't activate Lampkin. I just want I saw that yesterday.
I thought not activate, but open up his
practice window. Okay, fair. It's gonna be very interesting to see because they, for the most part, the secondary did hold their own last night. Christian Watson did have some big plays, but come playoff time, it's a different monster. And like we're in the midway point of the season where you have to. I feel like Vic Fangio has to have a decision made. Like who's the guy going forward? I'm not sold on Adoree Jackson just because I feel like he plays too hesitant out there. There's times where I feel like he second guesses himself on what he wants to do with the playmaker, and it's not something the Eagles need to have as their weakest link at the moment. But stepping away from the negative aspects of Jair Alexander retiring, and stepping into the negative aspect of the offense last night. Is this the offense that you guys were expecting to see coming out of a bye? I know Nick Sirianni has a good record of coming out of the bye, and we did see this offense trucking along against the Giants and the Vikings. But it seems like 2 steps forward could be possibly 5 steps backwards. Or was the Packers defense really that good?
I mean, I think the Packers defense is way better than Minnesota and the Giants, so you have to throw that into the equation. I think they have been playing like a top 5, top 8 defense throughout the majority of the year. I think their only 2 losses this season, they gave up 13 points. So that kind of tells you, how good this defense has been for Green Bay. I thought the Eagles did a really good job not allowing Micah to really blow up the game. I think he only had one tackle. I know he chased Hurts a couple of times and forced him out of the pocket, but there wasn't any play that stood out. It was like, well, there's Micah Parsons, like huge third down sack or anything like that. So I was pleased with that, especially with how the O-line had to play that bulk of the game without Lane Johnson. And it was just another game where they're having to rely on their sixth and seventh offensive linemen and Toth and Fred Johnson to kind of hold the ship. I think that led to a lot of offensive failures and inconsistencies because, again, we saw that first drive. They're marching down the field. We finally see that empty quarterback draw that we haven't seen all season. Unfortunately, Jaelan, has it punched out. But this offense, I thought we were going to see more wrinkles with the bye. I didn't see a whole lot of things that stood out to me where it's like, okay, other than the QB draw. But and I'm sure we're going to talk about this. I don't know what they need to do to get A.J. Brown involved, but only having 2 targets and then a desperation heave hoping to get PI to seal the game on the final play of offense, that can't cut it.
Do you think that's a Patulo thing, or you think that's a Jalen Hurts thing?
It's both. I mean, I saw one play. I think it was on the Jalen scramble where he missed AJ cutting over the field. He was wide open. Like that's something that Hurts you would like to think would see and could see. But again, there's so much stuff going on when you're a quarterback. So I'm not blaming Jalen for all of this, but AJ's just way too talented to get 3 targets in this offense. And I know there's a lot of mouths to feed with Devontae and Goddard and Barkley, but it's got to somehow come to fruition because they need AJ Brown to win their Super Bowl. I know there's some people that might be like, oh, I'm tired of AJ. They should have traded him. I'm over it. We don't need him. We've got Devontae. No, you need AJ Brown to win their Super Bowl. I'm sorry, you do. Because
1000%.
Devontae has been fantastic. Dallas Goedert has been amazing. I mean, imagine if they didn't sign Goddard back after there was some hemming and hawing that they weren't going to bring him back. So they need to get AJ going. I don't know how they do it, but they got to find more creative ways to do so.
What do you think about that, David? Because you had that very in-depth conversation with AJ in the locker room last time out. Is it the Patulo thing or is it the Jalen Hurts thing?
AJ Brown's targets?
Yeah.
Both.
You see how David smiles as he says it? Like, yeah, I'm gonna mix the pot now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, it's both. I mean, part of it, like last night, for example, and first to go back to the beginning, last year out of the bye, the Eagles beat the Cleveland Browns 20-16. So their offense wasn't really rolling right out of the bye last season either. Kind of took a couple of weeks. The defense won the game, and it did again. And this defense is really legit, and they know that if they don't turn the ball over, they don't really have to take a lot of deep shots. They don't have to put the ball in harm's way. So they're just not doing it. And like Corey mentioned, they had 2 starting offensive linemen out last night. And when that happens, everything changes. And I think another thing that, a lot of people complaining about the offensive scheme in regards to last night was the weather played a huge factor in this. It was cold. It was windy. And their scheme, like I was mentioning before the Jair news, they had a lot of curls and, routes like that. It was just a very simple scheme due to the wind and all. But you mentioned, like AJ Brown. I, don't know this for a fact, but I would bet a lot of my money that AJ Brown's deep shot on that 4th down, Jalen Hurts called that. Because if you watch the playback, Sirianni didn't like that call and what happened there at all. Not even a little bit. He's like, why? I mean,
yeah, exactly. You could see him saying why.
Yes. I think Jalen called that. I think that was him because they've been successful in those kind of routes, those kind of plays. And quite honestly, a little change there and they win. And to let Corey talk, expand on that, but and then they'll talk about going forward on 4th down. But so much of this is analytics now. If they score there, the Eagles have a 100% chance of winning. If they don't score there, even giving Green Bay back the ball, according to most of like the in-game percentage odds, they still have a 70% chance of winning. So they're going to take that shot because they have a 100% chance of winning. If they don't make it, they still have a 70% chance of winning.
So a
So
risk well
they're
worth
gonna
it.
do that. Say what?
I said a risk well worth it.
Yeah, I mean that's how they're going to see it, and everybody, the media is going to say it's crazy and silly and everything else, but they don't view it that way, and they're willing to live with those types of results. They don't care, what anybody else thinks or if they don't make it. And at the end of the day, they did win the game. At the end of the day, the gamble did pay off, and it has. What are they, 24-4 over their last 28 games? I mean, it's very hard to argue with their results because the way they've played conservatively, people hate it, whatever, it works. And I don't know that AJ Brown's going to want to be here for the long haul the way things are going, but if he's part of the cog and the reason they're winning, he's going to have to make a business decision as well with what's more important to him, targets or rings.
My rebuttal about the offense and it being cold and it was a struggle was that first drive they were moving down the field.
They looked good.
And I
Everything
know
was going well.
and I know they've got the scripted plays, the first 10, the first 15 plays or whatever. But from that opening drive to afterwards, I don't understand where the disconnect is or why there's such a lack of production.
Lane Johnson.
I mean, well, that's true. Yeah, Lane did leave after that drive, so that is a good point. But you're looking at three and out, three and out.
Is taking a toll on this offense, like just not having Cam in there. I'm sorry, Corey. But just not having Cam there as well.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I think Jurgens is obviously an upgrade over Toth, even if Jurgens doesn't, isn't 100%. But for me, ever since that fumble, it seemed like they just clammed up and they said, okay, we don't want to turn the ball over anymore. And their next 3 drives after that fumble, they ran 11 plays for 24 yards after marching down the field against a really good Packers defense. So to me, I don't know where this break in the chain is. I listen, I know Lane Johnson's one of the best offensive linemen in the game. I know you don't have a center, but there's still way too much talent across the board to not get a first down. I mean, to me, okay, I'm not saying they're going to score on every drive, but how poorly they looked over those next 3 still is a concern.
Yeah, they went ultra conservative. I completely agree, but I think a lot of that, again, is they look at what's happening. And, people want to look at the Eagles all 22 and not like what they see. Go look at the Packers all 22 from last night. You'll like it less. I mean, they didn't score a single point until the end of the game, until 2 minutes. I mean, it was ugly. And the Eagles look at this and they say, you know what? Green Bay's not going to be able to score on us. There is no reason to put the ball in harm's way. We'll win ugly. And that's just what they're doing. It's not, I'm not saying that it's a great way or that it's even sustainable long term, because at some point you're going to find somebody, and you might see it Sunday night, a team that has offensive power that's going to punch you in the mouth and force you into a shootout. But as we've seen in the past, when Jalen Hurts has been forced into a shootout, he kind of performs pretty well then. So, I don't know what the correct answer is, but I do think that a lot of this is they just play the odds throughout the game. They just constantly fed analytics. They don't think the Packers can score, so they don't worry about it. They just play to win. They play keep away and wait till the end, take their deep shots, and leave with a W.
And I think that's one thing, and I hate to do this, right? But I feel like this offense strongly mirrors. Well, not mirrors, but this offense is the consequence of what happened under Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson, because we all know that at the end of the season, we learned that it was mostly Nick Sirianni making the calls and kind of taking over play calling because he didn't trust Brian Johnson. But we all know he trusts Kevin Patullo because Patullo is one of the architects of this offense. And David, you know, I've spoken about this so many times. It seems like they play scared football a lot. Like they'll dip their toes in the water to see how it feels, and then before they get fully submersed into the pool, if they see anything wrong, they jump right out. And that's exactly what they did last night. And they're playing scared football, but at the same time, it's a little admirable because they're playing chess as well because of how good their defense is. And this team, honestly, if this team could go down a stretch and win, however many games to get the 1 seed, and they're hosting, teams in at the link throughout the playoffs. This offense could just go off at any point if they're playing reserved. But that's my only thing is, are we playing reserved or are we really just this out of sync? Because, and I want to kind of get your opinions on this next thought. Smitty may look really good on this, but AJ Brown should not be looking like he's just not invited to this offense. And in your opinions, what does this do for AJ Brown's career this kind of season? Like, this team they're not aggressive. It's a bit embarrassing how not aggressive they are with the players that they do have. And in that first drive, they had the ball going to Dallas Goedert. We see, Smitty's willing to make the catch anywhere and everywhere at the same time, but they're not as how can I say this? They don't this season. They just don't seem to be putting their foot on the throat of their opponents on the offense. Defensively, they're doing it, but offensively, it just seems to not be there. But going back to my question, what do you think this does for a player like AJ Brown, who 2 seasons ago was on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and now it's kind of like he's not even part of the offense?
I mean, it hurts him statistically, and I wonder if that's what he's worried about now, because 2 days after they won the Super Bowl in February, he said that he wasn't exactly fulfilled, that he was hungry and he wanted to do more. But, you win the Super Bowl, okay, what do you do more? You win another one. So, yeah, that I'm sure that doesn't get old in terms of feeling the celebration and finishing on top after the culmination of a season. But AJ said earlier in the training camp he wants to be regarded as the best wide receiver in the game. So I think that, yeah, it takes a hit for sure. And I think a lot of people view AJ through the lens of T.O. It's like, oh, another prima donna wide receiver, bad in the locker room. AJ Brown's not bad in the locker room. Yeah, the social media posts are annoying, and it could be a distraction, but you hear the other guys. You saw Devontae Smith's reaction when they asked AJ if he wants to stay and be in Philly. They know that AJ wants to win and wants to compete. It's up to, like you said earlier, AJ's going to have to make a business decision after this year if he wants to stick around or not, and that's solely up to him. So I think the team needs to just keep on doing what they're doing. It's working. I know it's annoying. I know it's frustrating. We want to see the big-time downfield plays to AJ. I just want to see more than 3 targets in a game to your number one wide receiver. I mean,
so does my fantasy team.
Yeah, the physical specimen that he is. You got 2 targets, 2 catches for 13 yards on the opening drive, and then absolutely nothing. And yes, the defense also has something to do with that as well. I'm not discrediting the Packers defense and secondary, but you still got to give one of the most physically talented wide receivers a shot with the ball. I'd take my chances of a 50-50 ball with A.J. Brown 9.5 out of 10 times.
Yeah. I think A.J. Brown does not just want to win only. Like Corey mentioned, he wants to compete and be a reason that they win. He openly admitted that winning didn't bring him fulfillment. What brings him fulfillment is competing. It is what drives him. It is what he trains for. He doesn't put in 10 hours a day in the gym to be an observer. He wants to be a contributor. He wants the ball, and I don't think he's a prima donna for that. I don't think those are the same, like you mentioned about T.O. This isn't the same personality. This isn't a guy who's sitting in the locker room saying he loves me some me. This isn't that. This is a totally different kind of guy. And Saquon, if you asked him after the Super Bowl, he loved winning the Super Bowl, but he admitted he hated not being a reason that they won that game. He didn't feel like he played a good game in that Super Bowl. He didn't get the ball a lot. He didn't have a touchdown. After his magnificent season, it didn't culminate the way he wanted to in that game. He wanted 120 yards, a touchdown, whatever. And I think that's just another example. Competitors want to compete. They don't just want to win. Winning's great, and it's what every fan wants the most because we're just watching. But again, we don't spend, hundreds of hours during the off season keeping your body in tip-top shape, not eating what you want, sacrificing time away from your families to, be on that field and compete. And I don't think, competing and wanting to win and wanting the ball more is just unique to AJ. The only thing unique is the tweets.
which people dissect a little bit too much because as our brilliant insider David has just dissected majority of the time, AJ's just tweeting out Bible verses and I'll say
And
20
they have
minute media.
meaning. I'm
Yeah,
sure they have meaning,
it could be
but
double sided.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, they're intentional, but I don't know who they're directed at, if they're directed at anybody. I think it's just frustration. I mean, Corey's been in the locker room. I've been in the locker room. You've been in the locker room. Have you ever once seen anybody who did not like AJ Brown? Everyone gravitate towards him. Everybody likes him. The fan
He's a
base that,
bona fide leader of this team. Like
yes, yeah. And the
Jalen
fan
doesn't
base
speak.
thinks he's like a team cancer. He's a team
No,
captain. He's not a
yes,
cancer. I mean, that's voted on by the players. This is a very well received and liked person, and people think, oh, he's driving the team apart. No, he's not. I mean, every week you go in there, he's, not to, point things out, but there's another person in this equation who sits in that locker room and there isn't a single soul around him. That's not AJ Brown. There's always people around him gravitate towards him. He's laughing, he's happy, he's accommodating to everybody in the room. And that goes a long way to, why everybody likes him and supports him, despite what some people may see as a distraction.
wow, that really just hit me what you just said about the person that sits with nobody around him, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, there's never about anybody around him in the locker room, and it could be one of those things where it's not a Carson Wentz situation. We're not reporting that,
No.
not at all. But it's just, damn, okay, wow, yeah, dude, you're so right. Um, so we kind of broke down the offense. Pretty much we all agree that it's Kevin Patullo's fault. And the tweets are regarding reference to Kevin Patullo. It's probably fine. Breaking news,
He's
per our
hacking his
reliable
accounts.
sources.
Yeah.
But the offense has to get it going at some point. And I know this is how the Sirianni game plan is. The verticals and all this extra stuff, but they got to get creative sooner rather than later and kind of get this offense rolling into the playoffs. And that person that's alone in the locker room needs to get people around him. Defensively, everything went well. Like this was a very well put together game. I thought the Eagles defense were going to shut out the Packers. I thought it was going to be a 3-0 ball game, and it was going to blow my mind. I know I've been raving about Jaelan Phillips. I strongly believe that he was that missing ingredient. And I pray that the rest of the season goes well for him, and then he ends up being an Eagle for the next 5 years. But what can you guys take away from this defense as a whole? Playing complementary football and just showing up. And by the way, in their interviews, people, the certain media members kind of asking them, how do you feel when the offense pretty much doesn't do their part? And everybody's response was, doesn't matter. We still have to do our part, whether they score a touchdown or not. We have to do our part and shut the other team down. So we're always going to have our offenses back, which is, I feel like, it speaks volumes for the culture in the locker room. But defensively, this feels like it was 5 steps forward. What do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about this defense going forward now down the stretch?
I think you have to be excited about it. Jaelan Phillips had an incredible debut. He had 8 pressures, 6 tackles, the forced fumble. He came up big on that 4th and 1 stop where Moro Ojomo called out that inside zone run, and the Packers just snapped it anyway instead of using one of their 2 timeouts, and it resulted in another fumble to give the Eagles the ball. I think you have to love what you saw last night. They pressured Love on 40.5% of his dropbacks, the second highest pressure rate he's faced this season, and they sacked him 3 times. So the pressure was working, and Vic Fangio didn't have to send as many blitzers. He basically said, our front 4 on the line will get to this quarterback, and they did. And it seemed like
I think he only sent blitzers 14% of the time in the game or something like that.
Yeah,
so
it was
like
a
wild
very
stat.
low. It was a very low amount. And if you were watching that game, you're like, wow, like this almost reminded me of the Super Bowl, where every play the pocket was just absolutely collapsing and just swallowing up the quarterback. And Jordan Love either had to get rid of it or everything just got discombobulated. Even though they didn't necessarily get a sack or a pressure, they disrupted it enough where Love had to get rid of it sooner than he wanted to. So I think you have to really like what you saw from the defense. Zach Bond is just amazing. I mean, it seems like every week he's leading the team in tackles. N'Kobe Dean just has brought
That
that
whole linebacker
physicality.
group.
Yeah, it was great to see Nolan Smith back. They got to figure out something with Jahad Campbell though, because I don't think he can play on the edge right now this year. He still needs some development, but you're losing out on what happened to be a really good linebacker when he started the season. So I don't know what they're going to do there. It's almost an embarrassment of riches now all of a sudden, but I would like to see Campbell on the field more defensively. But yeah, I mean, Jaelan Phillips, he played. I had the snap count. He played the most snaps of any edge rusher. He played 53 snaps. Jalix Hunt was next at 43. Smith had 19 coming back from the injury, and then Graham had 10, which we figured BG is going to have 10 to 15 a game and give you that, whatever he's got, but he's there to run his mouth and pump up the sideline as well. But if you're a fan of the Eagles, you have to feel really comfortable and really excited about where this defense is heading.
Yeah, I agree. The only concern, if you have one, is corner. I think, and that's mainly because the Eagles, in my opinion, clearly wanted Keeley to win that job, but Adoree has taken it. I mean, he has outplayed him at this point. He doesn't allow the big plays down the field, and that's a plus for Vic Fangio and his style. You mentioned Jacorian earlier. Health will keep him out because, as we've mentioned on the show before, Vic just isn't going to play somebody who doesn't practice. If you're not there, you're not getting on the field. I did like the addition of Michael Carter. I think that if things go completely terrible, he does have the ability, when healthy, to take over, the nickel, where you could put, Cooper outside if they absolutely had to do that. But honestly, that's nitpicking. That's the only concern. I saw, you guys discussing earlier in the day, what was better, Ajomo and Phillips now, or Sweat and Milton last year. That's a great debate. I actually prefer Ajomo and Phillips over both of them. If I could dive into that, I like what they've done.
Oh, do tell. I want to hear this.
Well, I like
Corey told me to
Phillips.
shut up.
I didn't say that. I just
He
said
it
it's
just
hard
like
to
that.
it's hard to pick hard to pick Phillips over Josh Sweat, with Sweat having 8 sacks already and Phillips hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. But go ahead, Dave.
It is. It's a projection for sure. I mean, it's definitely, you're just projecting. And Phillips, taking over for Sweat, and he has his injury problems. Sweat is somebody I actually covered all the way back in high school, and he suffered a gruesome injury to his leg at Oscar Smith, where he could have almost lost his leg. I mean, it was a terrible injury. So much like almost every player in the NFL, he's one shot away on the leg from his career ending. And I think that in Fangio's offense, he did really well. But I do believe that if you're looking for a higher ceiling, Jaelan Phillips probably has a higher ceiling in this offense overall. And Ajomo, I love what he's doing. I mean, if you saw just a little subtle things, like last night, he redirected Jahad Campbell when he was on the edge. Like, no, you need to get over there because I'm going one-on-one on my guy. I don't want you coming through my gap. Like, I'm getting him all to myself, which he did, by the way. So Ajomo's reading the offense, opposing offense, is just amazing. And he's showcasing his strength, his leadership. So I actually like the move for both, especially when you consider the upside of it. That's hard to say for me, especially for Milton Williams, who was just so instrumental in them, winning that Super Bowl last year and his play in the Super Bowl. But I think long term, I think the ceiling is higher for both Ajomo and Phillips. So I like the move for both, but you could argue, like Corey mentioned, as of today, is Sweat, a little more effective? Possibly. I don't know that he is in Fangio's defensive scheme. I don't, he never put up those types of numbers while he was here, like a 16, 20 sack season that he's, trajectory to have right now. But yeah, I love the move for both. So in short, I think the defense is awesome. If the offense keeps winning situational football, like they're just dominating in that. Every time it matters with late game execution, they outplay the opposition. And when you have a defense like the Eagles do, that will win you a lot of football games.
Completely agree. And Ojomo, just to shout out, he did call out that last play of the game. That he was saying, and actually directed it in the right way. Completely threw the Packers off.
I
So
love Jacob's explanation. He just looked completely dumbfounded when he was in the locker room trying to explain, like Corey said, like, what the hell did we even call that? Why do we still go with that? I mean, he just looked just flabbergasted. Which
um,
Eagles fans know all about from the Bucks doing it to us a couple years ago.
oh,
So
absolutely.
we know
Yeah,
how it feels.
we felt that pain before. So
Yeah.
bit of a short podcast today. Eagles are taking on the Lions this Sunday night. It's up to you guys. I mean, we'll do quick predictions. I'll start off, and I feel like this will be the first time this season, but I'm predicting the Eagles to get a little punch in the mouth. Just for the simple fact that the Lions they have a bit of momentum behind them. Dan Campbell and has that team feeling like like the number one team from last season, and they remind me of that 2018 Saints team that felt like if they beat the Vikings that year, they would have beat the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. This feels like that same team that's going to kind of come in, just disrupt the Eagles' flow of momentum. But I have the Lions winning 23-17.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat with you. If you look at what the Lions are doing, they've got the second highest scoring offense in the league, averaging 31.4 points per game, only behind Indianapolis. This is a really good offense. Philly ranks 12th for those wondering, averaging a tick over 24 points a game. A bit of a short week too, the Monday night now into the Sunday night. I know it's a home field game. It's going to be electric. It's probably the last biggest game of the regular season at the Link, based on the rest of the schedule. I agree. I think that the Eagles are going to definitely need more than 10 to win. By the way, the last time the Eagles won a game scoring 10 points, you guys know what year it was?
I do not.
The year was 1945.
2007 against the Cowboys.
Oh, damn.
A 10-6 win. So I think they're going to need more. But as I'm like saying, yes, I think they're going to lose this game. I just am replaying last night's game, and it's like they haven't shown me a reason. They haven't shown me a reason why they could lose a game. So I'm going to say Jake Elliott's going to hit a game-winning field goal with like 6 seconds left. It's going to be a 30-27 win for the Eagles.
Oh, wow. You just switched up. You baited me. You switched up on me. Look at that.
Well, like I said, because as I was talking, I'm just playing in my
roll.
mind. It's like they find ways to win. So how do you pick them to lose?
Listen, I would gladly eat crow. The defense does give me hope, but at the same time, it's just that line. The Lions' offense, if they put up enough points, like can this Eagles' offense show up? Is my only concern.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Jamar Gibbs, Jameson Williams. I mean, they got some firepower. They're not playing a depleted team like they did against the Packers, who didn't have their first round pick, Matthew Golden, or their stud tight end there. I agree with Corey, though, despite all of that. I have them winning by a late field goal from Jake Elliott as well. It's literally what I wrote down. My score was different, but the outcome the same, 23-20 Eagles. I went with player of the game, Saquon Barkley. If some of that's due if Lane plays, I think he will. The fact he came back in that game just kind of gives me hope that he's playing. I think the matchup is tailor-made for Barkley to break loose. Detroit, their front's a little aggressive, over pursuit, happy, heavy, and that kind of plays in Barkley's ability to bounce runs and create explosive plays. So I think Corey's going to see like a 60-some yard touchdown run from Saquon Barkley Sunday night. That's going to have the crowd going crazy. So, yeah, give me the Eagles 23-20. I just can't bet against the defense.
I would gladly eat crow next Tuesday. I'm just going to say that. If they win, I would gladly eat crow.
I'll be upset.
All right. Well, so we recapped the last game. We gave you guys predictions for the next game. We will be back live next Tuesday at 7 p.m. I want to thank you guys for joining us today and having a good time. My name is Brian Cameron, alongside Corey Naito, David Neese, and we are Flipping the Birds. And this is going to be that little awkward ending part where it takes forever to end. Go Birds.
Flip.